So why don't you tell me your name,
Bill Roberts.
and why did you join the Navy?
I was 17 years old, very patriotic. The Japanese had a type that said Pearl Harbor. It seemed like the right thing to do.
Had there been any military men in your family, or were you the first?
My uncle was in the First World War. I had two brothers in the Second.
And tell me about your first, when you found out you were going to be on the Emmons, and what you thought that was going to be like.
I had no idea. I had never seen the ocean before I got to Boston. I had no idea what it was going to be like, but it was a great adventure.
Wow. What was your job on the Emmons?
I was quartermaster.
And what does that mean?
Aide to the navigator, signalman, generally bridge duties. Helmsman at times.
So we know that the Emmons had many different missions and assignments and went to places all over the world. Can you think of maybe a couple of those that really stand out in your mind? Not talking about Okinawa yet, any of the other previous missions.
Certainly the first trip we went into Murmansk was a barn burner. Mediterranean duty was nice because the ports were close by, but a lot of submarine activity there. Any of the Scapa Flow, I suppose, you'd have to consider in there because it was operating with the British Home Fleet and pretending to go over for an invasion of Norway every so often to see if we could lure the German fleet out. Seem to have a lot of those things where they say, hey, here, go tempt somebody to shoot at you.
What was life like aboard the ship?
Very tight. Lived in each other's laps. Generally speaking, it was very close quarters. Stacked us 4 deep in a 6-foot compartment depth. You can imagine that if you got in your bunk on your back, that's the way you slept all night because there wasn't room to turn over. Not comfortably turn over, anyway.
Did you have any trouble getting used to being out on the ship?
After the initial seasickness got over with, it wasn't bad. I cured the original seasickness after about 2 weeks because I had gotten hungry, hadn't eaten in that time. And it was still rather rough out, and there were steam table servings at the time where they set up dishes on a table. And they brought the stuff to the table, and it went down from the senior enlisted down to us junior enlisted, and if there was anything left, that's what you got. They'd bring back more, but you always got fed. But they were setting this up for a breakfast, and it was rice and beans for breakfast, and prunes, prunes and beans for breakfast. And you got one bowl, they dumped everything in one bowl, and I was able to eat that and keep it down, and I never had trouble with seasickness after that.
What was it like being away for so long from your family and sort of the life that you had known before?
We left depression, hard depression, in the 40s, early 40s. And this was a great adventure, and meals were excellent. Well, lots of them, they weren't very tasty, but at least you got all you wanted to eat, which was a change. And so you weren't really homesick for any of that nasty old depression days. Once in a while, if somebody got close to you shooting or something of that nature, it got a little risky. And during the seasickness times, of course, you said to yourself, what the hell did I get myself into?
What, quartermaster is a pretty important position. What, how were you prepared to do that? Was training, on-the-job training?
When I went to boot camp, I was there for 3 weeks, and they said, we're opening a quartermaster school. They'll run for 3 months or something of that nature. Anybody who wants to sign up for it, sign up. So I signed up, because it was dealt with maps and compasses and that sort of thing. So we were there for about a week. Only had 3 weeks of boot camp. We were there about a week, and some boot ensign comes in and says, "I got good news and bad news for you. The bad news is that we're gonna," hang on, I got that wrong. I lost it all.
Yeah,
again.
don't worry about it.
At any rate, they said good news and bad news. You're going to have to leave here, but you're going to sea, and that's great. The sea is wonderful duty and all of this stuff. Boy, did he try to give us a snow job. But at any rate, after 4 weeks in the Navy, I was headed for a ship.
When the war started heating up and some of the missions became more serious, what were some of the missions that you remember, either in France or,
Well, previous to that, back in 1942, of course, you went out of any port on the East Coast, you were in a war zone because the submarines were there and there were ships being sunk right off the coast. And young and stupid, you don't think much about that. You do now and say, oh my God, that was a terrible way to live. It didn't seem to bother you at the time. And you had numerous subcontacts and attacks, and numerous mines floating by up in the North Atlantic there where they would break loose, or submarines would dump them out for whatever reason. If you run into one of these, that would be the end. That's all. And we had passed as high as 21 of them in the daytime hours when you could see them. And if you could shoot them and sink them, that was great. But if not, you just went on by and left them. But there was always that edginess about the whole thing. But you were young and stupid, didn't know enough to be scared.
so I hear there were some fun times as well as the tough times.
Oh yeah, the comradeship and the good times of going ashore and seeing strange places. I come from coal mine region in Pennsylvania, and boy, some of these places were exotic. Yeah, there were good times.
So when it was getting near sort of the final mission, and you were going to protect the Rodman, is what I understand.
Yes.
What do you remember about the initial call to action, and how that started?
I was the quartermaster of the watch on the bridge. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as I remember, and we were standing on the port side wing of the bridge, looking out at the Rodman, which was on screen on the other side. And all of a sudden, a plane came in and dropped a bomb, and we saw it, and the explosion, and the plane disappeared, and then everything seemed to go back to normal. I went over to tell the officer of the deck on the other wing of the bridge that, hey, the plane just dropped a bomb on the Rodman. And they all come running over, and there was nothing there. And they said, stop kidding around, this is serious. And just then a big puff of flames came up. So I said permission to call General Quarters, and I rang General Quarters and stand by to repel our attack. And then we went to General Quarters. My General Quarters station was on secondary con. The secondary control in case the bridge was hit.
So then what happened?
We went to General Quarters, and then the planes started coming in. And at first they only came one at a time. It seemed like they'd fly around till they got their courage up, and then they'd attack one at a time. During that phase, we were able to hold them off pretty well. Our gunnery was doing a good job. Also, they called for combat air patrol assistance, and Navy and Marine planes came up. After that, it just became very chaotic, very mixed up, and one Jap would fly through, and 2 of our planes on their tails firing at them, and as they were firing at them and missing them, those tracers were coming into our ship, and at the same time we were firing back at the planes, and our anti-aircraft was going by them, and they never steered off a bit. They were attacking. They got some of them. The reports of how many were shot down and so forth are a matter of record, but you often wondered, a plane would fly in, and if it didn't hit you the first time through, it would make a turn and come back for a second shot. But a lot of part of these would not turn around and make a second shot. They'd just go into the water, so you have to assume they were shot down. But it's a rather scary position. If somebody's shooting at you and getting close, and you're shooting back and getting just as close to them, you figure they're just as scared as you are. But if an idiot wants to commit suicide, there's no way you deal with that logically. You just can't. That's not believable. I feel sorry for these people with the suicide bombers and stuff today. That takes you somewhere.
Right. And then, do you remember when the plane hit near?
I was, like I said, in secondary con. They said if you're, how'd they put it? For those not actively firing, take cover. So I got behind gun mount number 3, and you could see the planes coming in, and no matter where you stood, it looked like they were coming directly at you. For what reason that was, I can't tell you, but that's the way it felt. And finally, one hit up forward, and I felt the jar. I got down by an air handler there that provided air to the compartments below. And when one hit in the fantail, excuse me, when one hit in the fantail, and it blew, rolled me over, and I could see the minesweeping gear flying up forward, and the fantail was blown completely off. And of course, I had one eardrum busted and burns on the side of the face and some shrapnel on the head, but relatively minor compared to some of the guys. And from there on, it just, I couldn't bring myself to jump overboard when they said go off the ship because there was too many people hurt. And you asked before about shipmates and how you feel about them. You can't leave your close friends just to get your own hide out of there. It just wasn't in the cards. So I stayed and manned a battle lantern and called for help from close by ships with Morse code. And one time there was a yeoman and a cook floating by, the yeoman holding onto the cook, screaming, "Help, I can't swim." And somebody help him. Nobody helped him, so I jumped over the side and got both of them to a raft. And come back on board ship. That's super stupid if you got to listen to it. But at any rate, that's what happened, and I stayed until the patrol boat came alongside and took us out. Well, I was instrumental in getting him back because I told him all fires were under control. Please come alongside for wounded. And just after they got tied up to us, one of the magazines up forward exploded. Their captain was yelling, "Get an axe, chop the hawsers, get us off, get us out of here." But we managed to get everybody off at that point, so then we left. That's how I left the ship.
Did you end up in the hospital, or what?
No.
Where did you go from there?
We went to a hospital ship in the Anchorage. We were there overnight, and they walked up, and a couple of doctors or psychiatrists, I don't know what they were, looked at us and says, "Are you ready to go on survivor's leave?" And that's not the question you want to ask somebody that might need help. "Oh yeah, let's go." So that's what happened. They put us on transport and we came back to the States. The ears cleared up, the one ear cleared up, so I could hear again, at least partially, by the time we got back in the States. But I've still got trouble with the one that's gone.
Was that the end of your Navy career?
No, I got shore patrol in San Francisco. I was there on VE Day and the riots as a shore patrolman. Didn't have enough fighting in the Pacific. You got to do that. And managed to get out of that unscathed. So then when did they get out? October the 12th, I got discharged. My hitch was up. I was in a minority crew, 17 to 21. So I got out as soon as I could convince them that I wasn't, how'd they put it? You're in a necessary occupation as a shore patrol. No, that's not my job. So they finally agreed and let me go, and I got out October 12th.
So when you think back on your Navy career, you said you were very patriotic when you went in. How do you feel about what you did, and how do you tell people about, why it was important to do what you did?
I don't normally. I'm not sure I know myself. But I've often said that I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience or give you 5 cents for any more. And that's about where I stand, I guess. I think it was a necessary job at the time. You don't know how much, what word am I looking for? Agitation, bear baiting, whatever you want to call it, that was done to the Japanese and the Germans. That wasn't in my bailiwick. That's somebody else's problem. I only knew the country was attacked, and it was your job to protect it, or to fight for it anyway.
So this is your second reunion, right, that you've been to? You used to come before.
Oh yeah, I came to the first 3. Then there was a long lag in between. I didn't come to a few. The wife and I came to a couple more after that. Then she was ailing and didn't feel up to it, so I didn't want to leave her alone. So I gradually drifted away and come back to a few. I've been coming. She passed away 2 years ago, so I've been coming to them since. I probably will continue till I croak finally.
So what does it mean to you to come to the reunions?
It's nice to see old friends. It's sad as hell to see them passing. And they're getting less and less. And I expect to join them, of course. I have an odd outlook on that. The last 60 years has been a bonus as far as I'm concerned. Shouldn't have been anything past 20.